Hello there. So it looks like the Tories will ship them in, and then Labour will give them the vote. Right now, political kites are being flown to prepare the nation for news that net migration will have jumped to another record level of anywhere between 650,000 and 1 million. Something we'll officially learn on the 25th of May. Despite Tory claims of being determined to cut it back to the tens of thousands. I'd hate to see what would happen if they became laissez-faire about this issue. But we now also have Labour flying the voting kite to prepare the nation to accept that all 16 and 17-year-olds, as well as absolutely any resident of the land, wherever they come from, getting to vote in our national general elections. Yes, according to reports, Keir wants to widen the voting franchise considerably, with migrants who live here permanently being given the chance to cast their ballots. Just like they do not in places like Germany and France. Now this sounds like a carryover from Jeremy Corbyn's 2019 manifesto, where it said much the same thing about all residents over 16 being given the vote, although what the term resident actually meant was not explained. Is it resident for tax purposes, those just living here, or having lived here for 3 to 5 years and worked? But in no case is there any requirement to have any allegiance to this country or belief in its values. Now many will point out that many of these people have a right to vote in local elections, and that's a very important observation. Because the argument about giving all residents the right to vote every time is that if they pay taxes they should have the right to have a say in how it's spent. And as our local authorities do spend a lot of our money, most of these newcomers do get some say already about how much money is used to deliver the services. But at a national level, when we're dealing with things like defence, education and policing, then it is right and proper that it remains a national vote, as opposed to an international vote. Unless you're an open borders fanatic, of course, who wants to mix everything and everybody up in the hope of curing the ills of the world. Fat chance of that. And as I've already said, the major EU member states like Germany, France and Italy all require voters in national elections to be over 18 and citizens of those countries. In fact, in Italy, until 2021, you had to be over 25 to take part in Senate elections. But in the UK, we now have 2 internationally controlled parties who look set to use the UK as a testing ground for everything progressive and woke. Open the borders and let them vote appears to be the way ahead for the UK. Now, if they can vote, one assumes that will also mean they can stand for election, maybe? If Keir Starmer's Labour Party believes that they'll all flock to them, they might have a shock coming if that's the case, especially with the massive demographic changes we're likely to see if net migration continues at this pace. Does the Labour hierarchy or even the Tory leadership believe that the traditionally, supposedly right versus left, blue versus red, one-party state can continue to exist in the face of such changes? Especially if all the newcomers decide they want to live near people like themselves. That way lies severe political fragmentation. We could end up with many smaller parties, some with no long-term interests in the prosperity or even the well-being of the UK. There will be a number of them who come here to make money and then leave after a few years. They have no long-term interest in this country, so why would it be fair to let them vote in our national elections? But this is, of course, the sort of policy that those with the money and power who believe they know oh so much more about what will make us happy, like owning nothing and being forced to live within a small defined area for the vast majority of your life while eating exactly what you're told. Well, that's exactly what they want us to do, and they're the ones running the show at the moment. So the WEF and the UN will be very happy with our UK establishment. The Tories have opened the borders in more ways than one, and Labour is lining up to continue the job and accelerate the demise of the UK. All based on the illusion that we have a choice at our elections. We have no real choice. Our politicians are chosen by a tiny clique of party officials and lined up in front of us by the major parties at elections who claim they are different from the rest. They're not. They will all follow the same general nation-destroying agenda. It's just that the mechanics behind how each party would individually achieve that is slightly different. Now, the FT says that Keir Starmer has rowed back on these plans and said it had only applied to EU nationals and that according to Labour bigwigs it would not now apply to all EU nationals. They would have had to have paid tax for several years, is what they now say. And according to Starmer, it's all about giving EU citizens in the UK a long overdue security. You know, like the EU is not giving UK citizens that live in the EU. This one-way political traffic in favour of the EU has got to stop. But of course it won't. The blob has been fighting Brexit as hard as it can, and the battle is obviously continuing, with both the Conservative and Labour parties talking Brexit, but acting rejoiner-like. Will nothing save us from these grand international plans? When all the ordinary person in the street wants the state to do is keep the nation safe, stick to the basics, and leave us alone to prosper in our own ways, within the law, of course, but within laws that are made to help us, ordinary people, not tie us down. And anyway, do you believe Labour when they say the vote won't be for all comers? These people just love giving the country away. And now we hear that an Amazon shopping account is the next target for Police Scotland as it delves deeper into the finances of the Scottish National Party. With reports saying the police are now investigating 1,000 instances of alleged fraud that could go back several years. And one source told the Sunday Mail that everything needs to be properly accounted for legally, and that is what the police are looking at here. It is an ongoing inquiry. Just because there hasn't been more arrests doesn't mean nothing is happening. Quite the opposite is true. Sounds very, very juicy to me. Now we've had financial experts forensically examining these accounts for quite a substantial time now, and more keeps coming out about what the police is looking into. But surely a political party keeps a very tight rein on its accounts, how everything is recorded, where the money comes from, and what it's spent on. And during every election, separate records have to be kept to ensure you don't spend more than you are legally entitled to. Maybe the police and/or the Electoral Commission need to take a peek at that too. Surely all the invoices and records are readily available. If not, what exactly is going on? The SNP has always put itself on a very high moral pedestal. So maybe it's got a very long way to fall, and fall hard. Now, are you part of the new paperclip rebellion? Something I talked about with Andrew Bridgen yesterday. And there's a lot to be rebellious about these days. So why not say it with a mug or t-shirt? Links in the pinned comment and descriptions box below.